Hey Fluentify family. Welcome back to the podcast where IELTS nightmares become Band 9 victories. I am Erica and today, we're unlocking a game-changing secret. Picture this. A plug-and-play template that works for any cue card, whether you're describing a person, place, or even a pineapple pizza debate. By the end of this episode, you'll have a system so foolproof, even your exam nerves won't mess it up. Ready to dig in? Over to our Fluentify Podcast experts.
So today, we're going to take a deep dive into something that I know a lot of you have been struggling with, and that is the IELTS Speaking cue card.
Yeah.
So we got some interesting material here that outlines what is called a Band 9 template, a structured approach to any topic that you might be faced with. And what we want to do today is really try to understand why this template is so effective and how it can actually be a game changer for you, especially if you're someone who appreciates a clear framework for things. I think a lot of us are like that.
I think most people are to some extent.
So we're going to explore how having this solid structure is actually not about sounding like a robot, but actually about freeing you up.
Yes.
To be more confident and to express yourself more fully using richer language.
It's funny because I know a lot of people, they get this cue card and they just freeze up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they feel this immense pressure to come up with a story like they've never heard before.
Yeah.
And what this template offers is a really smart alternative. It allows you to strategize and just focus on what the examiners are actually looking for.
Right. I think we all know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
You flip over that cue card, it says something like, describe a person who inspires you.
Right.
And suddenly your mind's like a blank hard drive.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
But there is this feeling, right? Like you need to come up with this super original, never before heard narrative.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this material is that it really highlights the fact that examiners are looking at how you structure your response.
Absolutely.
Much more than the story itself.
Yeah. The story itself, I mean, it can be interesting. It can be funny.
Sure.
But it's much more important how well you structure your response.
Right.
Because they're looking at the criteria. And the criteria include coherence and cohesion, how well your ideas link together, your vocabulary range and accuracy, and your fluency and pronunciation.
Right.
And having a strong underlying structure really supports higher marks in all these areas. Because if your response has a clear framework, it naturally flows better.
Right.
So you're going to get more points for coherence and cohesion.
Makes sense.
And you're also, because you have this template in your mind, it can guide you towards using better vocabulary, more descriptive language. And when you're not struggling to figure out your next point, you're naturally going to be more fluent.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Because you're not unning and ahhing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not like racking your brain trying to figure out what to say next.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of feeling overwhelmed by all the things you could say, it's giving you this reliable roadmap.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dig into this Band 9 template.
Okay.
So the material that you sent describes this as having these 3 core pillars, almost like a plug-and-play system that you can adapt to any topic.
Yeah.
So tell me about why this 3-part structure.
Well, I think it's because it's simple.
Yeah.
I mean, people like to have things in 3 parts.
Sure.
Beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
And this template leverages that tendency that we all have as humans. We like to hear stories in 3 parts.
Yeah.
And it's not about stifling your creativity.
Right.
It's just giving it a container within which to operate.
Yeah.
So you don't go off on tangents.
Right.
You stay focused.
Right. Okay, so let's start with pillar 1, which is called the magnetic hook. So this is all about making a strong first impression in those crucial first 15 seconds.
Yep.
And this material really emphasizes how important that initial impression is.
Yeah.
And it even gives us a formula. Drama plus pause plus vivid adjectives.
Right.
So why is this combination so powerful right out of the gate?
Well, because first of all, it grabs the examiner's attention.
Okay.
And it signals to them that you are a confident and capable speaker. And by starting with a little bit of drama, and I don't mean like, have to act it out or anything like that.
You're not putting on a one-man show.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just suggesting that something interesting is about to happen.
Right.
And then you pause. That pause is really important because it gives the examiner a chance to anticipate what's coming.
Okay.
And it gives you a moment to gather your thoughts and control your pacing.
Right.
And then you weave in some vivid adjectives.
Right.
And this shows the examiner right away that you have good vocabulary and that you can create a picture in their mind.
Okay.
So it's a really effective way to start.
Yeah. And it gives a really good example here. It says, I'll never forget the time I lie. Dramatic pause. Found myself stranded at a train station in Tokyo.
Right.
It was chaotic, surreal, and oddly life-affirming.
Yeah. You can almost see it, can't you?
Yeah. It's like, boom, you're right there.
You're right there in the train station with this person.
Yeah. So it's really about, setting the stage immediately and engaging that examiner right away.
It really elevates your response. It goes beyond just saying something very basic and predictable.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to pillar 2, which is called the pair story blueprint. And this covers roughly the 15-second to the 1-minute mark.
Right.
So PAIR stands for problem, action, result.
Right.
Can you walk me through how this structure forms the main body of your response and why it's so effective?
Oh, it's effective because it's logical and it's easy for the listener to follow. So you clearly outline the problem that you faced,
Right.
the action that you took to solve it, and the result of your action.
Right.
So it creates this natural flow. You're not just listing a bunch of points.
Right.
You're telling a story,
Right.
which is what they want to hear.
And the template even gives these helpful starter phrases for each part. So for the problem, it says something like, at the time I was overwhelmed because. For action, it suggests, so I did something reckless, brave, or creative. And for result, in the end, it taught me. So how can these simple sentence starters help someone structure their thoughts when they're under so much pressure?
Well, because they act as scaffolding.
Okay.
So you have this framework, and then you just have to fill in the details.
Right.
And when you're under pressure,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to think.
It is. Your mind goes blank.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So having these prompts can help you stay on track.
Right.
It's like having training wheels for your storytelling.
I love that. Training wheels for storytelling.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so now we get to the final pillar, which is the unforgettable twist. Aimed at that 1 minute to 1.5 minute mark.
Right.
So the idea here is to conclude your response with something memorable. Right.
Something that's really going to stick with the examiner.
Yeah.
So the template suggests 2 main types of twists.
Okay.
Either a philosophical insight that you gained from this experience, or a self-aware joke.
Right.
Maybe something a little bit humorous.
Yeah.
So why is crafting a strong ending so crucial?
Because it's your final chance to really make an impression.
Okay.
And a philosophical insight shows the examiner that you've thought about this experience deeply, that you've learned something from it.
Right.
While a self-aware joke, it shows that you have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
That you don't take yourself too seriously.
Right. It makes you more human, right?
Exactly.
It makes you more relatable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And the examples here are great. So for philosophical insight, it says, now I realize that getting lost is just another way to find yourself.
Right.
And for a self-aware joke, it says, next time I'll triple check the train schedule and maybe learn Japanese.
Yeah. I like that one. That's a good one.
So it's really about adding that final flourish.
Yeah. And it shows the examiner that you can do more than just narrate an experience. You can draw conclusions from it.
Right.
And you can reflect on it.
Yeah.
With a touch of humor. And that makes you stand out.
Right.
Because a lot of people just end their response with like a boring summary.
Right. Yeah.
This makes you more memorable.
Right. Okay. So the material that you shared goes beyond just explaining the template. It actually has this like live application of the 3 pillars. Using a common IELTS cue card topic.
Right.
Describe a time you solved a problem. So let's walk through this mock student response.
Okay.
And see how they use the template.
Yeah.
So it starts with, I'll never forget the night my laptop crashed right before a crucial deadline. Pause. It was terrifying, desperate, and surprisingly my finest hour.
Right.
So right away, you can identify the drama, the pause, and those vivid adjectives. It's like you're right there.
Yeah.
You feel the panic.
It's very vivid.
Yeah. And then it goes into the problem, action, result. So the problem is, at the time, I was absolutely panicking. It felt like all my hard work had vanished into thin air. And then the action. So I did the only thing I could think of. I raced down to a 24-hour internet cafe,
Right.
practically bribed the barista with promises of endless coffee and free tech support,
Right.
and frantically started rebuilding my presentation from scratch.
Yeah.
So there you can see the action.
Yeah, and it's specific, too. It's not just like I solved the problem.
Right.
It's like I went to an internet cafe, I bribed the barista.
Yeah, it's like you're right there with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can see it happening.
Yeah. And then the result, by the time the sun came up, I had not only managed to recover most of the file, but had actually refined and improved it significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on it, that stressful night really taught me that pressure can sometimes be a surprising superpower.
Right. So they learned something from it. Yeah, exactly. It's not just like, oh, I solved the problem and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I learned something. This was a valuable experience.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then the unforgettable twist. Now, I fully appreciate why they invented cloud backups.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Though I still seem to do my best work when the clock is ticking down. Pause. And yes, that barista still occasionally calls me for tech advice.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like philosophical, but also funny.
Yeah, it's the perfect blend.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a little bit of wisdom
Yeah.
and a little bit of humor.
Yeah, it's really good. So it's remarkable how this structured approach can help you generate such a coherent and detailed response in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, it really does. And I think it takes away that feeling of being lost for words.
Yes.
You know, you don't know what to say or how to structure your response. This gives you the tools to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So the core takeaway for me is that adopting a structured approach, like this isn't about trying to sound like a robot. It's about giving your response a strong backbone.
Right.
And empowering yourself to be more coherent, to use richer language, and ultimately to feel more confident
Absolutely.
when you're facing these speaking assessments.
Exactly.
So it's about having this flexible framework that you can adapt and apply to different topics.
Yeah, and that sense of control can really reduce anxiety because you know you have a system that works.
You have a plan.
Yeah. And it allows your natural communication abilities to come through.
Right.
Because you're not so focused on what am I going to say next.
Yeah. Which leads us to a final thought for you to consider. How could a structured approach like this template benefit you in other areas of communication beyond just these language assessments?
Yeah.
So think about, giving presentations, participating in everyday conversations. Maybe you need to explain something clearly to somebody. Even just articulating like a complex idea to a friend. Could this kind of framework be helpful?
Yeah, and I think it could because a strong opening, a clear middle, and a memorable conclusion, those are important in any kind of communication.
Yeah.
So if you consciously think about the structure, you're going to be more effective.
Right.
And more confident.
Yeah. I think that's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
So much to think about. Thank you.
Let's test it live. Cue card. Describe a time you solved a problem.
I'll never forget the night my laptop crashed before a deadline. It was terrifying, desperate, and my finest hour. At the time, I was panicking, all my work was gone. So, I did the only thing I could. I raced to a 24-hour cafe, bribed the barista for coffee and Wi-Fi, and rebuilt my presentation from scratch. By sunrise, I'd not only recovered the file but made it 10 times better. Looking back, it taught me that pressure can be a superpower. Now, I realize backups exist for a reason, but I still work best under
Structure
deadlines.
saves the day.
And yes,
now let's
that
get you
barista
that
still
template.
gets free tech
Want
support.
the word-for-word template plus 5 done-for-you scripts? Simply comment band 9 on this episode. I'll DM you the PDF cheat sheet. Share this with one friend who's drowning in cue cards. Why? Because sharing equals good karma, and karma equals band 9 scores. New here, hit subscribe. We drop weekly episodes to turn your IELTS prep from meh to mic drop. See you in the next episode very soon.